Hi dear students. So today I am going to discuss about the topic of animal kingdom. So you have to remember this chapter is from the CBSE 11th class. So you will be coming across a large number of terminologies. So if you look into your first PU biology syllabus part of it, it is voluminous and there are chapters which are all very interesting, but you have to remember the terminologies, and two chapters that has a large number of terminologies are one is animal kingdom, another is morphology of flowering plants. So what else you have to remember is, so the topics in second PU it would be quite easy because all the difficult topics are found in this first year syllabus or the 11th standard CBSE syllabus. What else you have to remember is, so you would be having very few diagrams in animal kingdom. You don't have any diagrams to be precise, but there are some diagrams like which they have asked during NEET examinations and CET examination are the diagrams concerned with the types of organization in animal, that is diploblastic and triploblastic organization. You have to draw the diagrams. Then there might be diagrams arising for A-coelomate, pseudocoelomate, and eucoelomate. So in one of the question papers, they had given the diagrams and asked the students to identify which is A-coelomate, which is pseudocoelomate, and which is coelomate diagram. So such diagrams are there, but it's a very interesting topic. And once if you are strong in the terminologies, I'm very sure that you'll be doing extremely well in your uh, this particular topic. So let us proceed with this topic of animal kingdom. So you know that according to Robert H. Whitaker, there are five kingdoms. So animal kingdom is the fifth kingdom. So under animal kingdom, all the eukaryotic organisms, multicellular organisms, so they are all placed under animal kingdom. So their cell doesn't have a cell wall. Plant kingdom, the plant cells have a cell wall. Animal kingdom, the animal's cell doesn't have a cell wall. They directly have the cell membrane. And the reserve food material in case of animal cell is glycogen, whereas in plant kingdom, the reserve food material was starch. So with this brief introduction, so let us go into the general characteristics of animal kingdom. Then we'll try to understand the various terminologies. So this video would help you a lot in understanding them, and there are a lot of photographs of relevant uh, pictures of the examples that they have given for the different phylum. And remember to like and subscribe for this channel. And if you have benefited from this video, kindly share it with your friends. So let us proceed with the topic, that is the animal kingdom. So what is an animal? So the animals are multicellular and heterotrophic organisms. That is, they cannot synthesize their own food, whereas plants they can synthesize their own food. So the animals are multicellular and heterotrophic organisms, and they do not have cell wall, neither do they have chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is absent, so they cannot undergo photosynthesis, nor can they synthesize their own food. So animals are multicellular and heterotrophic organisms. If you look into the slide there, you find the diversity of animals there, from poriferans to coelenterata, annelida to mammalia, birds, reptiles, all the examples are given there. So that is the diversity of the animal kingdom. So you have to study 11 major phyla for the animal kingdom. So they are, the first phylum is Porifera, second one is Cnidaria, it is also called as Coelenterata. Then third phylum is Ctenophora. Fourth phylum that we'll be studying is Platyhelminthes. Fifth phylum is Ascalmenthes. See, Platyhelminthes is also called as flatworms. Ascalmenthes are called as roundworms. Annelida, they are called as segmented worms. So the seventh phylum that you will be studying is Arthropoda. They are the segmented worms. Then the soft-bodied animals are placed under phylum Mollusca. So the phylum Echinodermata, you're going to study about the spiny skinned animals under them. So hemichordata, you're going to study about animals which have stomochord, which is the primitive type of notochord, which we call it as stomochord. And under phylum chordata, you are going to study about all those animals which have notochord, which have pharyngeal gill slits, and which also have the dorsal nerve cord. So dorsal tubular hollow nerve cord, you notice that in case of chordata. So the chordata will be having various classes which we'll be studying later. So from the phylum Porifera to the phylum Echinodermata, they are all organisms which does not have the notochord. So they are considered to be non-chordates. So hemichordata is almost like connecting link between the non-chordates and chordates. So chordata, they have this notochord. In case of mammalia, where human beings are also placed, so the notochord in adults is replaced by the skeletal system. So notochord is observed only in the embryonic stage in majority of the animals like birds, reptiles, mammals. So you find the notochord only in the embryonic stage. So these are the 11 major phylum that you are going to study in the kingdom Animalia. So the basis of classification of this into various phylum is it is based on the levels of organization. When I'm talking about levels of organization, some of the organisms like phylum Porifera, they exhibit cellular grade of organization. So they do not even have tissues. They are cellular grade of organization. Then phylum Coelenterata and phylum Ctenophora, they exhibit tissue grade of organization. Phylum uh, Platyhelminthes, they exhibit organ level of organization. Phylum Ascalmenthes to Chordata. From phylum Ascalmenthes to Chordata, they exhibit this organ system level of organization. See, in organ system, for a particular function like digestion, there are various organs associated with it. There are accessory glands like salivary glands, the pancreatic juice from the pancreas, the bile juice from the liver. So there are a lot of accessory glands also associated. There are a lot of organs also involved. So for the digestion, so we call it as organ system. So the organ system commences from phylum Ascalmenthes to the phylum Chordata. Then there is basis of classification on the basis of body symmetry. So if they are bilateral or radially symmetrical, we classify them based on the number of germinal layers. So we have two types of animals, diploblastic or triploblastic. Based on presence or absence of coelom, we have coelomate, acoelomate, and pseudocoelomate organisms. If the organisms exhibits metamerism, that is internal and external segmentation, like in earthworm and leech, so we consider that to be metamerism or segmentation. Then in chordata, you notice this notochord. So based on this various parameters, the kingdom Animalia or animal kingdom is classified. So based on the levels of organization, I have already told you about the cellular level of organization. The example is phylum Porifera. You can notice the sponges here. So the phylum uh, Porifera, they exhibit this cellular level of organization. The tissue level of organization is noticed in phylum Coelenterata and phylum Ctenophora. So the organ level of organization, you notice that in phylum Platyhelminthes or flatworms. So the Ascalmenthes or roundworm, they exhibit the organ system level of organization. So still chordates, they exhibit this organ system level of organization. Even we human beings, we have this organ system level of organization. We have a digestive system, we have a excretory system, we have a respiratory system. So these are all organ system which performs a particular function. Like respiratory system functions as for respiration, digestive system is for digestion of food, so excretory system is for removal of nitrogenous wastes. So the kidneys, the ureter, urinary bladder. So they are all involved in this elimination of the nitrogenous waste. So the cells are arranged loosely in cellular level of organization. Example is Porifera, sponges I told you about. So tissue level of organization, you notice in this Cnidarian. Phylum Cnidaria is also called as phylum Coelenterata and phylum Ctenophora. You notice this tissue level of organization in them. Then organ level of organization, you notice in the higher elements like platyhelminthes to chordates. So you notice this organ level of organization. The organ system level of organization, you notice this in higher animals. So these are things that you have to remember about where the animals are classified based on their levels of organization, cellular grade of organization, tissue grade of organization, organ level of organization, then organ system level of organization. So based on the classification on the levels of organization, so we have this slides for that. So digestive system. Now, the certain animals, we call them as complete digestive system. Certain animals, we take the example as they are incomplete digestive system. Like in the example of Hydra, there is a single opening for both mouth and anus. So we call this type of digestive system as incomplete. So even in case of this planaria, they have a single opening for which functions both as mouth and anus. So this sort of digestive system, we consider it to be the incomplete digestive system. Now, in case of roundworm, you find a complete digestive system where the alimentary canal has both mouth and anus. They are separate openings. So organisms which have separate opening for mouth and anus, we call them as having complete digestive system. Then circulatory system, they are of two types. So the open type of circulatory system and closed type of circulatory system. See, in open type of circulatory system, the heart pumps the blood into the body cavities and body spaces. So they don't have blood vessels. They do not have arteries. They do not have veins. They do not have capillaries. So we call this type of circulatory system as open type of circulatory system. In closed type of circulatory system, the heart pumps the blood into definite blood vessels which are having varying diameters, like they can be arteries, veins, and blood capillaries. So closed type of circulatory system, the heart pumps the blood into definite blood vessels with differing diameters. Like some of them have larger diameters, arteries, lesser diameters like veins, much more lesser diameter you notice in blood capillaries. So these are the things that you notice in case of a closed type of circulatory system. Even we human beings, we have a closed type of circulatory system. So because the heart pumps the bloods into the blood vessels. So if they pump the blood directly into the open spaces and they are bathing the cells and tissues, we call it as open type of circulatory system. So based on the symmetry, the animals are majorly classified into asymmetrical and symmetrical. So in asymmetrical animals, the body cannot be divided into two similar parts. So you cannot divide the body into two equal halves in any plane of division. So you can notice here one diagram. So where the organism is not being divided into two equal halves in any plane of symmetry. So there is inequality when they are divided. So we call this sort of organisms as asymmetrical. Phylum Porifera exhibits asymmetrical organisms. Snails also exhibit asymmetrical organisms. In symmetrical organisms, you can divide them into two equal halves. So in symmetrical animals, the body can be divided into two equal halves. So that we call it as symmetrical animals. And symmetrical animals are of two types: radial symmetry and bilateral symmetry. So most of the organisms which are spherical or cylindrical in shape, so whenever you divide them by a central axis, through the central axis, you can divide them into two equal halves. So there are more than one plane of division of the animal. But in case of bilateral symmetry, in human beings, they have shown it. So the body can be divided into two equal halves in only one plane. This is an example for bilateral symmetry. So remember this. So the body of human beings can be divided into two equal halves in only one plane, and this we call it as bilateral symmetry. So the symmetrical types is of two types: radial symmetry. So you can see this hydra being divided at the central axis into two equal halves. So in one plane, they have got divided into two equal halves. In another plane, which is perpendicular, you can divide the same hydra into two equal halves. So they exhibit more than one plane of symmetry which passes through the central axis. They can divide this organism into two equal halves. So the example for radial symmetry are a few examples of poriferans, cnidarians and ctenophora, and echinoderms. In adults, you can notice this radial symmetry, whereas the larvae of echinodermata, they are bilateral symmetry. The bilateral symmetry, the body can be divided into right and left equal halves in only one plane. Like this is a lobster. So lobster can be divided into two equal halves in only one plane. Human beings can be divided into two equal halves in only one plane. Uh, Chicken can be divided into two equal halves in only one plane. So this sort of symmetry, we call it as bilateral symmetry. From platyhelminthes to chordata, all of them have this bilateral symmetry except the phylum Echinodermata, where the adults exhibit radial symmetry and larvae exhibits the bilateral symmetry. So remember about it. So the body of bilaterally symmetrical animal. So it has at the anterior region, it has the head or cephalic region, we call it as. At the posterior region, anus or tail is present. So anal tail is present or anus is present at the posterior region. The dorsal side is the upper side. See, for us, the front side is the ventral, the back side is the dorsal. So the dorsal side is the upper side in case of reptiles because they are four-legged animals. We are bipedals. So for us, the front side is the uh, ventral and back side is the dorsal side. For the reptiles, the back side, upper side is the dorsal, lower side is the underbelly side is the ventral side. So these are the different positions in a bilaterally symmetrical animal. We also have at the anterior region the head and the posterior region the anus is located, and we don't have tails but other animals have tails. So the anal tails are present. So based on the germinal layers, so at the embryo level, there are three germinal layers that develop. So if the animals are having two germinal layers, that is an outer ectoderm and an inner endoderm, so yeah, those sort of organisms we call it as diploblastic animals. And you can notice that in between the ectoderm and endoderm, the space is filled with mesoglia. In triploblastic animals, they have three layers. That is the outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, they have cellular layer in mesoderm, and inner endoderm is there. So such animals with three germ layers, we call them as triploblastic animals. Animals with two germ layers, and in between the ectoderm and endoderm, they have this mesoglia. We call such animals as exhibiting diploblastic organization. So diploblastic animals and triploblastic animals, it is based on the number of germinal layers. If they have three germinal layers, that is ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm, we call them as triploblastic animals. If they are having two germinal layers, we call them as diploblastic animals. So here you can see the again the details. So here the first diagram, this they might ask you during examination to draw it, or they might ask you during CET to identify them. The diagram of diploblastic and triploblastic. See the pink colored in diploblastic animal, it represents the undifferentiated jelly-like layer, which we call it as mesoglia. So whereas here the outer ectoderm and inner endoderm, they have a cellular layer called as mesoderm in case of triploblastic animals. So that is the difference between diploblastic and triploblastic animals. Diploblastic animals, they have two germ layers, the outer ectoderm and inner endoderm. In between this ectoderm and endoderm, they have this mesoglia, which is undifferentiated jelly-like layer. So this diploblastic animals you can notice in phylum Cnidaria or Coelenterata, and phylum Ctenophora, you can notice them. In triploblastic animals, they have three germ layers, outer ectoderm, middle mesoderm, and inner endoderm. So from Platyhelminthes to Chordata, all of them are triploblastic animals. See, based on the body cavity, the presence of body cavity, we have three types of animals. Animals which have coelom, we call them as coelomate. Animals in which coelom is absent, we call them as acoelomate. And animals in which body cavity is present, but their lining is, the inner layer is not lined by mesoderm, we call them as false coelom or pseudocoelomate. So remember about that. So animals based on the presence or absence of body cavity or coelom, we can differentiate them into acoelomate, pseudocoelomate, and coelomate. So in coelomate, the body cavity is lined by mesoderm, and the body cavity is found in between the body wall and the gut wall. When we are talking about gut wall, we are talking about is alimentary canal. In between the body wall and the alimentary canal, they have cavity. And if that cavity is lined by mesoderm, we call them as coelomate animals. So let us study about them in detail. So these three diagrams, you should remember it. So even in NEET and CET examination, they have given these diagrams and asked them to identify what types they are. So they have labeled it as A, B, and C, and they have asked. The first diagram indicates acoelomate. There is no coelomic cavity in between the body wall and the alimentary canal. So there is no coelom at all. So coelom is absent. So this you find it from Porifera to Platyhelminthes, they don't have coelom. Then pseudocoelomates, they have a body cavity, but they are not lined by mesoderm. Instead, the mesoderm, you find them as scattered as pouches. So this pink colored, you can notice ring-like structure. The mesoderm is scattered as pouches. So this you notice in case of Ascalmenthes, that is roundworms. So Platyhelminthes, they exhibited acoelomate nature. Ascalmenthes, they exhibit the pseudocoelomate. So where they have a body cavity, but the body cavity is not lined by mesoderm. Instead, the mesoderm is scattered as pouches. Then in case of coelomate, which has true coelom, you notice that the coelomic cavity is lined by this pink layer is nothing but mesoderm. So the coelom is lined by the mesoderm. So we call such type of body cavity which is lined by mesoderm, we call it as true coelom, and the animals are called as coelomate animals. And the coelom is filled by coelomic fluid. From Annelida to Chordata, all of them are coelomates. From phylum Annelida to phylum Chordata, all of them are coelomates. So it is very easy to write these attributes. See, A coelomate condition you notice in the flatworms, or it is also called as platyhelminthes. Then pseudocoelomate or false coelom you notice in case of roundworms, or it is also called as Ascalmenthes. Coelomate animals, you are noticing it from the Annelida to Chordata, all of them have true coelom, wherein the coelom or body cavity is lined by the mesoderm. See, the functions of coelom is The coelom, it accommodates visceral organs. So a human body they have shown where these diagrams are not required for you to practice. It is just for understanding. So it accommodates the visceral organs, the body cavity. The coelomic fluid reduces the friction between visceral organs. So the coelomic fluid, it acts as shock absorber. So the coelomic fluid acts as shock absorber. Another basis of classification is metamerism. In case of earthworm, in case of leech, we also call leech as jigne in Kannada. So what you notice is there is segmentation. Both internally and externally, they exhibit segmentation, and in each segment, the body or organs are equally distributed. So we call such type of segments as metameric segments, and this phenomena we call it as metamerism. So you notice it in annelids and arthropods. So here you have a diagram of centipede also. So the earthworm and centipede, they exhibit this metameric segmentation. So it is almost like tenicoid rings, these segments. They not only exhibit external and internal segmentation, but they also have the body or organs distributed equally in this segment. So we call this type of segmentation as metameric segments, and the phenomenon is termed as metamerism. So the example is phylum Annelida, which has the earthworm, leech. So they are all examples. And phylum Arthropoda, which has this centipede, they are also an example for it. So based on the notochord, see notochord is a mesodermally derived supporting rod. You can see this brown color structure. This is the notochord, which is found in between the dorsal nerve cord and the uh, alimentary, the pharyngeal gill slits or the alimentary canal. In between the dorsal nerve cord and the alimentary canal, you can notice this notochord, which is a rod-like structure, and it is derived from the mesoderm layer. So you can notice this in embryonic development stages of some animals, like you can notice them in amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. So animals with notochord, which have notochord, we call them as chordates, and those animals which do not have notochord, we call them as non-chordates. So the example for non-chordates are from phylum Porifera to phylum Echinodermata. All of them are non-chordates. They don't have notochord. In case of adults, the notochord will be in human beings, I'm talking about, or in mammalia. So the notochord is replaced by the vertebral column. So remember about this chordates. So they have a notochord, they have pharyngeal gill slits. So in a embryonic stage, you can notice this pharyngeal gill slits, hollow dorsal nerve cord, and this pink colored one is the notochord. So this notochord, which is a rod-like structure and mesodermally derived, they are found in between the dorsal nerve cord and the alimentary canal. And post-anal tail is also present in chordates. So all these four characteristics features of chordates are given in this embryo stage. So this is a ready reckoner. So Porifera, what are their attributes? They have cellular layer of organization, asymmetrical or radial symmetry they exhibit. They don't have coelom, so they are acoelomate. The phylum Cnidaria and Ctenophora, they are tissue level of organization. They are diploblastic animals. They exhibit radial symmetry, and they are acoelomate. In Platyhelminthes, they have organ and organ system level of organization. So they are triploblastic because they have three germ layers. They exhibit bilateral symmetry because they can be divided into two equal halves in only one plane, and they are acoelomate because they don't have any coelom. And Ascalmenthes, you notice that they are having organ system level of organization. The germ layers, they are triploblastic. They have three layers, and symmetry is bilateral symmetry. So the coelom is pseudocoelomate. Why do we call it as pseudocoelomate in case of Ascalmenthes or roundworm? Is because the coelom cavity is present, but they are not lined by mesoderm. Instead, mesoderm is scattered as pouches in the body cavity. That is the reason we call it as pseudocoelomate. From phylum Annelida, that is from earthworm to phylum Chordata, all of them exhibit organ system level of organization. They are triploblastic. They are exhibiting bilateral symmetry, except for Echinodermata, where the adult exhibits the radial symmetry and larvae exhibits bilateral symmetry. That is the only exception. Apart from that, they are coelomates. All of them have coelom, which is lined by the mesoderm layer. So remember about this ready reckoner, which gives you important points about the different phylums. So the first phylum that we are going to study about is phylum Porifera. So what you are seeing is a marine form, the sponges, the cycon. You can see at the upper region they have a anterior region, a large opening called as osculum, and they have numerous pores on them, which we call it as ostia. Some of them are showing budding also. Budding is a asexual method of reproduction that you can notice in phylum Porifera or sponges. They are commonly called as sponges. See the salient features of phylum Porifera. During your examination, they are just going to ask you to write the salient features of phylum Porifera. So what you have to write is the important salient features you have to write. And what do they exhibit? They have a cellular grade of organization. So the symmetry is most of the poriferans are asymmetrical. Only a few of them are exhibiting radial symmetry and germ layers are absent. So because they are still at cellular grade of organization. Coelom is absent, so they are called as acoelomate animals. Habit and habitat. Whenever we talk about habit is where are they found? It is the address of an organism. Habitat is the livelihood of an organism. So are they heterotrophic, autotrophic, or parasites or saprophytes? That is what is the habitat it indicates. So this poriferans, the sponges, so they are aquatic. Mostly they are marine. Majority of the poriferans are marine organisms. Sedentary, they are found in a place. They don't move from place to place. They are found in a place and they are usually attached to the rocks. So they are sedentary. And some of them are solitary. That is, they are found single. And a few of them exist as colonies. They exist as colonies. The digestive system in case of porifera, it is absent. So they have a intracellular digestion. Within the cell, they undergo digestion because they have cellular grade of organization. So it is very primitive type of organization. So you can't expect a digestive system in case of poriferans. So respiratory system is absent. So it is directly by diffusion through the cells and water that they breathe or respire. Then circulatory system is also absent. Whenever we say circulatory system, we are talking about heart and the circulation mode. So through the blood vessels or without the blood vessels, circulatory system is also absent. So reproduction is by asexual methods. If they undergo fragmentation, see the cycon, if they undergo fragmentation, that fragment can develop to form a new sponge or new individual. So, and sexual method of reproduction is also noticed where the gametes fuse and they are going to form the zygote and develop into the sponges. So the sponges are considered to be hermaphrodites. What do you mean by hermaphrodites? They are bisexuals. They have both male and female organs. Since they don't have organs, both male and female gametes in the same organism. So we call them as hermaphrodites. So you find both male and female gametes in the same organism. So we call them as hermaphrodites. And fertilization is internal. That is within the uh, organism, the fertilization takes place and zygote forms and they develop. Whenever we use this term, development is indirect. We say that only when we come, there is a larval stage in between. So from an young one to an adult, they go through an intermediate stage, that is a larval stage is found, and after the larval stage, they develop into adult. That is the reason we call it as development is indirect. So these are unique characteristics of phylum Coelenterata. When they ask you during examination, salient, write the salient features of phylum Porifera for 5 marks. You are expected to write this. So they are uh, acoelomate, they do not have uh, the germinal layers, digestive system is not present, digestion is intracellular, respiratory system is absent, circulatory system is absent, reproduction is by asexual method, that is fragmentation, and they also exhibit sexual reproduction by formation of gametes. The poriferans are hermaphrodites, that is, they are bisexuals. They have both male and female gametes within the same organism. So fertilization is within the organism, so we call it as internal fertilization. Development is indirect because they have a larval stage. We call the development to be indirect. Unique features, you shouldn't forget this. The unique feature is water canal system. So they have the water canal system. Through the ostia, the water enters inside the spongiocele, and they are going to bring about the food particles, removal of excretory products, as well as the diffusion of gases takes place through this water canal system, which is unique and found only in Coelenterata. So they have millions of pores on them. So there are small openings or pores on the body of cycon, which we call it as ostia. So the osculum is found at the anterior region, a large opening. So they have a single opening, which is both a mouth and anus. So they are incomplete digestive system. You can notice that. Then the if you dissect this, they have a cavity at the center. So the sponges have a cavity at the center, which we call it as spongiocele, and these canals, water canals, are lined with collar cells or choanocytes. They are a type of cells which are called as collar cells or choanocytes, and they are firm and erect because of the spicules that is present in their body. So spicules provide the mechanical strength to the poriferans. So the spicules are made up of either silica or calcium carbonate, and they also have spongin fibers. So these are the uh, salient features of phylum Porifera that you are expected to write whenever they give it in your examination. What are the examples that you remember is cycon? This is a cycon. So there is spongilla and euspongia. So the water canal system, so the unique feature, I have slides here to show it to you. So the water enters through the pores or the ostia, and they are entering into the spongiocele cavity, and they exit out through the osculum. So water enters through ostia, they enter into spongiocele, and they are exiting out through the osculum. So what exactly the water canal system does is it is used for food gathering, gaseous exchange, respiratory gases are exchanged, and removal of waste that is going to happen during the uh, by the water canal system. Then there is spongiocele, and these canals are lined by collar cells. So the collar cells look like this. They are not required for diagram. You just remember. So the spongiocele is lined by this collar cells. This is how the collar cell looks. An enlarged collar cell it is. We call this as choanocytes. So that is one unique feature of this porifera. So the body is supported by spicules. You can notice here triradiate spicules. These spicules are of different shapes. Some of them are having 6 arms in them. So there is a class called as Hexactinellida. So some of these are made up of calcium carbonate. Some of the spicules are made up of silica. So chemically they are made up of silica or calcium carbonate. So the body is supported. They provide mechanical strength to them. So the glass-like spicules you notice there and spongin fibers. So that is unique to phylum Porifera. So the example, so in the textbook they have given the cycon. So the live example as in a ocean, you can see this cycon, which is also called as skypha, commonly called as skypha. Cycon is called as skypha. Then this is spongilla, the freshwater sponge. You find them in freshwater. And this is the bath sponge. So we call it as Euspongia. So these scientific names you have to remember. They might be asking it in the examination or even in the NEET exams or CET. So these are textbook prescribed examples. So you should remember them. Cycon is commonly called as Scypha. The spongilla is commonly called as freshwater sponges as they are found in freshwater. The other sponges, they are all marine forms. They are found in seas and oceans. So Euspongia is commonly called as bath sponge. The next phylum is phylum Cnidaria. So you might see in this slide, we have the picture of jellyfish. So the jellyfish is an example for phylum Cnidaria. Phylum Cnidaria is also called as Coelenterata. Why they have this name Cnidaria is because they have the stinging cells. So nematocysts are found. So the stinging cells are there. So because of that, we call this as phylum Cnidaria. Some of the examples that you can remember for phylum Cnidaria or Coelenterata is you can remember the example of the jellyfish, Hydra, Obelia, because Obelia shows both body shapes of jellyfish and Hydra, which we call it as polyp and medusa. Then you should also remember corals. So you might have read the book Coral Island also. The Great Barrier Reef of Australia is made up of corals. So remember about this corals and their importance. And they are found and they are members of this phylum Cnidaria or phylum Coelenterata. So what are the salient features of phylum Cnidaria? So they exhibit for the first time, see in Porifera it was cellular grade. Here you find tissue grade of organization. They have radial symmetry. They are diploblastic. They have an outer ectoderm and an inner endoderm. In between they have this mesoglia which is made by jelly-like substance. Then habit and habitat. So they are mostly marine and they are sessile. Some of them are sessile, a few of them are free swimming, some of them are alone or solitary, some of them are found in colonies. Like hydras, they might be found in colonies, jellyfish might be found floating alone, solitary. So the digestive system in case of the coelenterate or Cnidaria, it is incomplete. So they have, why is it incomplete? Because they have a common opening. For both mouth and anus, they have a single opening. So we call this digestive system as incomplete. So they exhibit both within the cell and outside the cell digestion. So we call that as intracellular and extracellular digestion. So the respiratory system is absent. They don't have lungs, nostrils, and like what we have. So the respiratory system is absent. It is by direct diffusion. So the circulatory system is also absent. They don't have heart and blood vessels. They don't have that. So the reproduction is polyp forms. They reproduce asexually. Polyp forms hydra-like body they have. So they reproduce asexually, especially by budding. And medusa form is this jellyfish forms are considered to be medusa form, which are umbrella-like structures. So this medusa form, they reproduce by sexual reproduction. So polyp forms reproduce asexually by budding, and this medusa forms, they reproduce by sexual method. So most of the sealant traits, the sexes are separate. That is, you can identify between male and female. And the fertilization is external fertilization. What do you mean by external fertilization is these organisms release the gametes into water. So the male gamete and female gamete fuses and they undergo fertilization to form zygote in the water. So it is not within the organism. So since the fertilization does not take place within the organism and it is outside, we call this as external fertilization. And development is indirect. What do you mean by indirect is they have a larval stage and the larva then develops into adult. So the unique features of this phylum Cnidaria or Coelenterata is they have tentacles with cnidoblasts. So tentacles are having cnidoblasts and they have this nematocyst there. So a gastrovascular cavity is found within the organism, which we call it as coelenteron. The name coelentrates is derived from this gastrovascular cavity or coelenteron. So they have an opening mouth on a specialized structure. A protrusion will be there, and on that they have mouth, so which we call it as hypostome. So the polyp and medusa forms are noticed. Some of them show alternation of generations like obelia. So they have polyp generation and medusa generation. So the corals have skeleton which is made up of calcium carbonate. So corals are also placed under phylum Coelenterata. A unique character is they have coelentron, they have tentacles with nidoblasts or stinging cells. Using this nidoblasts or stinging cells, they are going to capture the prey as well as it provides them defense from predator. They also help in harboring the animals. So the stinging cells, they also help in anchorage. So that is also the help of the stinging cells. So some of the examples of the coelenterata are hydra, obelia, which shows alternation of generation, aurelia. When we say aurelia, it is nothing but the jellyfish. Physalia is commonly called as Portuguese man of war. So Portuguese man of war, Physalia. Adamsia is also like a hydra form. Penetula or sea pen, Gorgonia, and Gorgonia is sea fan. Meandrina is the brain coral. So these are all the examples for the phylum Coelenterata. So you have to remember about this thing. So they have a tissue grade of organization, radial symmetry. They exhibit diploblastic, that is, they have two germ layers. Coelom is absent, that is why they are called as acoelomate. Majority of them are marine forms. A few of them are sessile or free swimming. A few of them are found alone or in colonies, solitary or colony. So digestive system is incomplete because they have a single opening for both mouth and anus. They exhibit intracellular and extracellular digestion. Respiratory and circulatory system is absent. Reproduction, the polyp reproduces asexually, that is hydra-like bodies, they reproduce asexually, and these jellyfish-like bodies, they reproduce sexually. So we call this sort of body structure as medusa. Hydra-like body structure, we call it as polyp. Some of them, they show alternation of generation, like obelia, they show the same organism exhibits polyp generation and medusa generation. Most of the are separate. The male and female are separate. External fertilization is there since they have a larval stage. Development is indirect. So unique characters of coelenterata is they have a tentacles with nidoblasts, or we also call it as stinging cells. They have a gastrovascular cavity which is called as coelenteron with an opening. So that is mouth on a protruded structure called as hypostome. So they have polyp and medusa forms. Some of them show alternation of generation. The corals have skeleton, so which is made up of calcium carbonate. The examples for phylum Coelenterata are hydra, then jellyfish is called as aurelia, obelia, then physalia, that is Portuguese man of war, adamsia, penetula is sea pen, commonly called as sea pen, gorgonia, sea fan, meandrina is brain coral. So the unique features, you notice that tentacles are finger-like structures. So in the hydra, you can notice that this tentacles, when you enlarge them, you can notice this stinging cells or nidoblasts. Okay, so they surround the mouth of coelentrates. It is used for the nidoblasts are used for food capture and defense. So this is the structure of nidoblasts which I have given in your textbook also. So they have a nematocyst and thread-like structure. So the nidoblasts or nidocytes, they are the stinging cells. So they are present on the tentacles and throughout the body of the organism with a poison-filled capsule. So they have this poison-filled capsule called as nematocyst. So it paralyzes the prey. So whenever they sting them, it paralyzes the prey. So the poison-filled capsule is present within nematocyst. So nidoblast, the function is it is used for anchorage. So you can notice here the nidoblasts help in attaching to the substrate. For anchorage, they help in defending them from predators and also to capture prey. That is the function of nidoblasts. So the unique features, they have a gastrovascular cavity. You can notice at the center, they have a gastrovascular cavity, which is called as coelentron, and they have an opening or mouth on a special stalk-like structure called as hypostome. You can notice the same even in case of the medusa, that is in case of jellyfish. So the polyp form and medusa form, these diagrams, they have given it in your textbook also. So polyp form, they have given the example of Adamsia, and medusa form, they have given the example of jellyfish. So polyp is tubular and they are undergo asexual type of reproduction. Hydra and Adamsia are an example for it. Medusa is umbrella-like free swimming and they are sexual forms. They undergo sexual reproduction. So they have downwardly pointed mouth and tentacles. Example, Aurelia, which is also called as jellyfish. Aurelia is also called as jellyfish. So alternation of generation, this cycle is not required. You just remember the example of Obelia, where they show alternation of polyp. Polyp produces medusae asexually, and medusae forms the polyps sexually. So this alternation of generation or metagenesis is noticed in Obelia. So these are some of the examples of corals. So you can notice the mushroom coral, the brain coral, it just looks like meninges of brain. So mushroom coral, brain coral, then madrepora, you can notice. Then tubipora is here. So this diagram is not required. Anyway, it is just if you want to know the details, you can go through it. Not there for the syllabus. So the corals are made up of calcium carbonate. See, this looks like the horn of stag. So they call it a stag horn corals. Just look into the diagrams. So the table coral, it just looks like table. So this is also made up of calcium carbonate. Brain coral. So you can see the meninges-like structure in this brain coral. Then pillar coral also, where they are long pillar-like structures. You notice them. They are also corals. So the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, it is completely made up of corals. So the largest coral island, the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, it is completely made up of corals. Some of the examples that your textbook has given for phylum Cnidaria or Coelenterata is Hydra, Obelia. So you can see the Hydra example, Obelia. This is the Portuguese man of war. So their stinging is quite effective. That's the reason they are called as Portuguese man of war. Adamsia, which is also called as sea anemone. Penetula, sea pen, we call it as. Gorgonia, just look at the beautiful picture of this Gorgonia or sea fan. So Meandrina, they are the brain corals. So these are all the examples that they have given in your textbook, and this is how those organisms look. So most of you are not familiar with this because they are all marine forms and submerged under the sea and ocean. But these are all the types of sealant traits that you should be aware about. Most of us are only having an exposure to terrestrial animals, and rarely we have exposure to this marine uh, animals. So that now you will be in a position to identify the different organisms in the seas and oceans. The next phylum is Ctenophora. They are commonly called as comb jellies or sea walnuts. See, they exhibit bioluminescence. Probably they are were found deep underwater, so they exhibit bioluminescence. So they are self-illuminated. So bioluminescence is the characteristic trait of phylum Ctenophora. They are commonly called as comb jellies or sea walnuts, they call them as. So they have almost all the attributes of Coelenterata. They have a tissue grade of organization. They are acoelomates. They do not exhibit any germinal layers. So all those features are similar to that of Coelenterata, except that they have 8 rows of comb-like structures which help in locomotion. So the salient features of this phylum Ctenophora. So they have tissue grade of organization. Almost all the attributes of Cnidaria or Coelenterata, you can notice here. They have tissue grade of organization. They exhibit radial symmetry. The germ layers are diploblastic. So coelom is absent, so we call them as acoelomate. The habit and habitat, they are exclusively marine, so forms, and solitary and pelagic. So the digestive system is incomplete since they have a common opening both for mouth and anus. So the digestion is intracellular as well as extracellular. That means within the cell also digestion takes place. Outside the cell also digestion takes place. Respiratory and circulatory system are absent. Respiration is by diffusion. So the reproduction is only by sexual method, and the comb jellies or sea walnuts, they are hermaphrodites. So the external fertilization takes place, that is they release their gametes into water. So the gametes fuse in water, they develop to form the zygote and develop there. So development is indirect since they have a larval stage. So unique features of this particular Ctenophora or comb jellies or sea walnuts, what they are commonly called as is locomotion is by 8 vertical external rows. You can count those 8 vertical external rows of ciliated comb plates. They have comb plates which are made up of cilia. 8 external vertical ciliated comb plates. You can see the arrows where I'm showing. So they help in locomotion. So tentacles are present. Then they exhibit bioluminescence, that is, they emit light. So that bioluminescence they exhibit. So the examples of this Ctenophora is Ctenoplana and Pleurobrachia. So Ctenoplana and Pleurobrachia are the example of the phylum Ctenophora. So I'll show you the pictures of those. So unique features is locomotion is by this 8 vertical rows of ciliated comb plates. Tentacles are present. You can notice this tentacles. So the enlarged section of comb plates. So these diagrams are not required for your examination. As I told you, these diagrams are only for explanation purpose. So they have the ability to emit light from their body. This phenomenon we call it as bioluminescence. See, bioluminescence you notice mostly in organisms which are deep in the sea where light cannot reach. So they most of those fishes or the organisms they exhibit bioluminescence. So they are found deep in the sea where the availability of light is not there. So they emit light from the body. So they exhibit bioluminescence. So this is pleurobrachia. This is how pleurobrachia looks. And this is the diagram that they have given in your textbook. And this is Ctenoplana. So pleurobrachia and Ctenoplana, these are the examples that you have to remember for phylum Ctenophora. The next phylum, from here it is interesting, phylum Platyhelminthes, flatworms we call them as. So most of them are parasitic, that is they are found within the host, endoparasitic they are. So what you see here is the planaria. So such beautiful colorful planaria you can notice, which is also flatworm. See, as the name indicates, flatworms are dorsoventrally flattened. They are flattened structures. So the examples, common examples you can remember is tapeworm. So you should remember the scientific name also, Taenia solium, and liver fluke. So liver fluke is called as uh, the hepatic, the fasciola hepatica, they call it as liver fluke. So these three examples you can remember, planaria, which is non-parasitic, tapeworm, and liver fluke, they are parasitic. So remember them as the examples for flatworms. So their salient features of this flatworms, for the first time, you notice in Platyhelminthes, they have organ and organ system. And for the first time, you can notice they are exhibiting bilateral symmetry. So you can, three examples are here. So the first one is the planaria. The reddish colored one is the liver fluke, which is found in the liver of sheep or goat. The third one is the head region of the tapeworm, which has this hooks and suckers. They help them to remain attached to the intestinal walls. So that hooks and suckers is focused here. So you can divide this organism into two equal halves in only one plane. So we call them as bilaterally symmetrical. And for the first time, you notice they are having three layers, triploblastic in nature, and coelom is absent. So they are acoelomate in nature. Then habit and habitat, they are mainly aquatic forms. Planaria is aquatic form. Now the liver fluke and tapeworm, they are endoparasites. They are found within the host body. The planaria is free living, but parasitic forms you notice in case of the tapeworm or Taenia solium and liver fluke or Fasciola hepatica, they are parasitic in nature. The digestive system is incomplete because they have a single opening for mouth and anus. Respiratory and circulatory system are absent. So respiration is by direct diffusion. So the reproduction is asexual if they undergo fragmentation, especially planaria. So they can completely regenerate into a new form. So that total regeneration you can notice in case of planaria. They exhibit sexual mode of reproduction. So most of these organisms are hermaphrodites. See, when we use the term hermaphrodites, tapeworm is hermaphrodite, liver fluke is hermaphrodite. It implies that they are bisexuals. That is, a single organism has both male and female reproductive organism in that single organism. So this we call it as hermaphrodites or bisexuals. So the reproduction, the fertilization is internal. Within the female genital tract, the fertilization takes place. That is the fusion of male and female gametes. Development is indirect. So most of them, their development is indirect and they have larval stages. And they also have primary host, secondary host. See, like liver fluke, they have to have a primary host of snail. Only from the snail, they can enter into the secondary host like goat. Sometimes this liver fluke also infests human beings from the goat improperly cooked meat. So they liver flukes can also infect human beings. So this is how they have primary host and secondary hosts in especially the parasitic forms. Development is indirect because they have many larval stages. Now, what are the unique features of this flatworms or platyhelminthes? They do not have segments. They are unsegmented. They have a, as the name indicates, dorsoventrally flattened body. So ಅಪ್ಪಚ್ಚಿ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. That is, they are dorsoventrally flattened, except tapeworms. So excretion in case of these platyhelminthes or flatworms is by flame cells. Flame cells are also called as protonephridia. So they might ask you during examination for 1 mark, what are flame cells or what are protonephridia? Then you have to write it as flame cells or protonephridia are found in flatworms or platyhelminthes. Their main function is they are excretory in function. They remove the nitrogenous waste. So that is how you have to write the answer. And these, since they are parasitic forms, they have hooks and suckers. So they have shown the enlarged section of head of tapeworm. They have hooks and suckers, which helps them to hold on to the intestinal walls of the host. So they also absorb nutrients from the host through their body surface. So the unique features are they are unsegmented, dorsoventrally flattened body, except tapeworms. So you can see the planaria here. This is the liver fluke and this is the tapeworm. So excretion is by flame cells or protonephridia. You need not worry about this diagrams. You just remember excretion is by flame cells or protonephridia. So phylum Platyhelminthes. So the other unique feature is the hooks that are found on this tapeworm and suckers. Even it is found in case of liver fluke. So the parasites have the hooks and suckers, which helps them to hold on to the intestinal walls, and this also helps them to absorb nutrients from the host through their body surface. So they absorb the nutrients from the host through their body surface. So the examples, Taenia solium. So it is also called as pork tapeworm. So improperly cooked pork when they are consumed. So human beings intestine is also infested with this Tinea solium. Fasciola, which is the liver fluke, Fasciola hepatica. This liver fluke infests goat and sheep. So improperly cooked food consumed by human beings, that way the liver fluke can also infest the liver of human beings too, but they are very rare occasions. But pork tapeworm or this Tinea solium infects human beings a lot. So planaria is a free living one, and they are aquatic forms. So you can remember about planaria, which is also an example of platyhelminthes. The next phylum that we have is Ascalmenthes. So they are also called as roundworms. Commonly, Ascalmenthes are called as roundworms. You can see this picture of this roundworm. They are parasitic forms. So they are not dorsoventrally flattened, they are roundworms. So the salient features of this phylum Platyhelminthes are they have an organ and organ system. They are, uh, sorry, okay. See, phylum Ascalmenthes for the first time, you notice that they are going to be uh, pseudocoelomate. They have a false coelom. That a coelom is not lined by mesoderm. Instead, you find they are scattered. That is, the mesoderm cavities or pouches are scattered within the space. So we call them as acoelomate. So they exhibit bilateral symmetry. Then you also find incomplete digestive system. So complete digestive system rather, sorry. So the unique feature is an excretory tube is found to remove the body waste through excretory pore. That is, the anus is found here. So Ascalmenthes, you should remember the example of roundworm. Then there is also eye worm, which we call it as loa loa, LOA, LOA. Then there is pinworm. Then the elephantiasis disease, which is caused by this microbial Ascalmenthes, which we call it as Wucheria bancrofti. Commonly, we call it as filariasis, but the scientific name is Wucheria bancrofti. They cause elephantiasis, anekalu, what we call it as. So they have an excretory tube that is a unique feature. Body is circular in cross section and they exhibit syncytial, that is, they have more than one nucleus, multinucleate epidermis they have a thick cuticle layer. Since they are parasitic forms, in order to prevent themselves from being digested by the digestive enzymes in the intestine, they have a thick cuticle layer which prevents them from being digested. So other unique features are they exhibit sexual dimorphism. So they are unisexuals. So that is monoecious organism. So you can find male and female are separate. So the male is smaller when compared to the female, which is longer and larger. So females are longer than the males in case of roundworms. So they show sexual dimorphism, that is, you can differentiate between male and female roundworms. So we call that as sexual dimorphism. That is, morphologically, you can differentiate between male and female. So males are smaller, females are longer and larger. So the examples of phylum Ascalmenthes. So you have this roundworm is called as Ascaris lumbricoides. So the other example for this roundworm is hookworm. So this is how this hookworm looks. They are called as ancylostoma. So the scientific name is ancylostoma. Common name is hookworm. Then Wucheria bancrofti, which is microscopic in nature. Now you can see the person who is infected with this Wucheria bancrofti is suffering from elephantiasis. You can see his limbs are enlarged. So he is suffering from this elephantiasis. So this filarial worm, that is Wucheria bancrofti, is also one of the examples of roundworm. So remember about them. Then there is also Loa loa, the eye worm. So that is also an example for roundworms. The next phylum that we have is phylum Annelida. We also call it as ringed or segmented worms. So they exhibit metamerism. So some of the examples that you can remember for phylum Annelida, see this example is earthworm, and you can see the moist and shiny skin. See, they undergo respiration through this moist skin. So we call it as cutaneous respiration. So that you can notice in this earthworm. See, they have segmented worm. Nereis is also there, which is placed under phylum Annelida. Then we have this Hiridinaria or cattle leech. So they are also segmented worm. Hiridinaria is a parasite. It's a temporary parasite. It is ectoparasite. See, once they suck the blood from the cattle, so cattle leech we call them as, and they are filled with the food, so they detach themselves from the cattle. So this leech, cattle leech, Hiridinaria is also placed under Annelida, and they are segmented worms. And for the first time in phylum Annelida, you can notice that they have a true coelom. That is, coelom is lined by mesodermal layer. So you can notice this grade of organization in case of this earthworm and leech. So they have organ system. Symmetry is they exhibit bilateral symmetry. So they are triploblastic organisms. They are coelomate. For the first time, phylum Annelida exhibits they are coelomate. That is, the body cavity is lined by the mesodermal layer. So the habit and habitat is they are terrestrial. A few of them like near is freshwater or marine forms are also there. They are free living. Earthworm is free living now. The leech is parasitic. So the digestive system is complete because they have a separate opening for mouth and anus. So the digestive system is complete in case of roundworms. So respiratory system is through the moist skin on the surface, so they undergo respiration. So we call that as cutaneous respiration. They also exhibit branchial respiration. So there is both cutaneous and branchial respiration. Circulatory system is closed type. For the first time, you are noticing the circulatory system is closed type, which implies that heart pumps the blood into blood vessels. And the blood of earthworm is red in color. So even human being blood is red in color. But hemoglobin, which is responsible for the red color in blood, it is found in the RBC in human beings, whereas the hemoglobin is present in plasma in case of the earthworm. That is the difference in the blood of earthworm and that of human being. So the circulatory system is closed type. So heart pumps the blood into the blood vessels like arteries, veins, and capillaries. Reproduction is by sexual method. Earthworms and leeches, they are monoecious. What do you mean by monoecious? Mono means single, ecious means house. So single house, that is a single earthworm has both male and female reproductive organ in the same organism. They are hermaphrodites. Even though they have both male and female reproductive organs in the same organism, they do not undergo self-fertilization. So fertilization is with another individual. So earthworm and leeches, they are hermaphrodites or monoecious. Nereis example is dioecious. Male Nereis is separate, female Nereis is separate. Development is indirect because they have larval stages. Unique features, what you notice is metamerism or true segmentation you notice. Then they have longitudinal and circular muscles which help in locomotion. So their locomotory organs is setae or parapodia. In leeches you can notice parapodia. In earthworm you can notice setae. The excretion is by nephridia. So protonephridia or flame cells, you found it in the previous phylums. Here you find that they have nephridia. Excretion, removal of nitrogenous waste is by nephridia. So the nervous system consists of paired ganglia, lateral nerves, double ventral nerve cord. So the double ventral nerve cord you can find, and it almost appears like because they have lateral nerves transversing between them, it appears like a ladder-like arrangement of nervous system you find. They have a paired ganglia in the head region, lateral nerves are there, double ventral nerve cord. Apart from that, you can notice for the first time head-like structure. Anterior few segments fuse form head-like structure, and there is a concentration of sense organs. See, even in our head, all the sense organs are concentrated here. Vision, smell, the taste, hearing, Skin is also almost found here. So, and central nervous system is located in the head region. So this cephalization for the first time you notice in case of Annelida. So the examples for this uh, Annelida or segmented worms are Ferretima, that is the scientific name of earthworm. Hirdineria is the scientific name of cattle leech. Nereis. So these are all the examples of the phylum Annelida. So the unique characters, segmentation, that is both internal and external segmentation, and the body parts are equally distributed in each and every segment. So you can notice the earthworm. This is a leech which is biting a host, then they are sucking blood. See, this leech has hiridin in the saliva, which prevents clotting of blood. So that you can notice in this cattle leech or hiridin they secrete hiridin which prevents the clotting of blood. Even after they get detached, a lot of blood is lost because their saliva would have been there which prevents the clotting of blood. So this is nereis. The below slide is nereis. So locomotory organs, you can notice here small hair-like structures in earthworm. They are the setae. So locomotory organs are setae, and in case of nereis, you can notice a protrusion called as parapodia, and they have setae. So parapodia is noticed in nereis. Excretion is by nephridia. So the excretion in case of Annelida is by nephridia. Then they have a paired ganglion. Can you notice it here? Paired ganglion is there. They have double ventral nerve cord which are connected by lateral nerves. So they give the appearance of a ladder-like arrangement. So nervous system, for the first time you can find a paired ganglia connected by lateral nerves to a double ventral nerve cord. So there is a double ventral nerve cord. The examples of phylum Annelida: earthworm. So Ferretima, we call it as leech, Hiridinaria, the leech, and Nereis, the sandworm, commonly called as sandworm. So these are the examples for phylum Annelida or the segmented worms. These are the textbook prescribed examples for you. So you can see in the slide where a person has bitten by this ectoparasite, cattle leech. They absorb the blood. They have multiple stomachs. They fill their stomachs with blood and they detach once they are completely filled with the blood. And so you can notice here his socks is soaked with blood. That is because the saliva has iridin, which prevents clotting of blood. And as a result of it, the blood is continuously flowing out. The next example is phylum Arthropoda. As the name indicates, arthro means jointed, poda means appendages. So joint-legged animals. So phylum Arthropoda is the largest phylum in the uh, animal kingdom. The two-thirds of all the species on the world in the world is from this phylum Arthropoda, the largest phylum. So you have to remember about that. So what are the characters of phylum Arthropoda? Even they exhibit organ system of organization. Symmetry is bilateral, triploblastic animals, coelomate. These are all common from henceforth. These four attributes are common. So habit and habitat, they are cosmopolitan. That is, they are almost found everywhere. Okay, so that is the uh, trait of it. The respiratory system, they might have gills or book-like gills. In case of insects, they have trachea or book lungs. Then the circulatory system is open type. That is, the heart pumps the body of the blood into the open body spaces. So it is open type of circulatory system. So reproduction, it is mostly dioecious. That is, the organisms you can differentiate between male and female. You can differentiate them. That is sexual dimorphism you can notice. So fertilization is internal, that is within the female genital tract. They are egg laying. From now on, we use this term oviparous. If they are egg laying, we call it as oviparous. If they give birth to young ones, we call it as viviparous. So mostly they are oviparous and development is direct in few of them. that is the young one directly develops into adult. In few of them, they undergo metamorphosis, like in insects, the silk moth or butterfly, the ugly caterpillar, it is going to undergo a larval stage. Then they form a pupa and they surround themselves with the cocoon. And in this resting stage, from this resting stage later, they mature and come out as that beautiful butterfly or silk moth. So we extract the silk fibers from the cocoon stage. So the farmers, what they do is in the cocoon stage, they put it into boiling water to kill the pupae, and then they utilize it for the extraction of the silk fibers. So that is noticed here, metamorphosis. So they might have larval stages or many stages are there like caterpillar stage, the pupa stage, larva stage and pupa stage and cocoon stage. So you notice this in the insects. So the oviparous, you can notice most of them lay eggs. See, the scorpion is also belonging to this phylum Arthropoda as they have jointed legs. But scorpion is an example of ovoviviparous condition. They give birth to young ones. They don't lay eggs. But viviparous condition, wherever they are there, whenever they give birth to an young one, usually the mother's body is attached to the young one through the placenta. So there is no placental connection in case of scorpion. So they are neither completely viviparous nor oviparous. So we call this as ovoviviparous condition, which you notice in case of scorpion. So remember about that. Most of them are oviparous, they lay eggs, but scorpion is ovoviviparous. Even though they give birth to young one, the young one within the mother's womb, they do not have placental connection. So crab is also an example of this ovoviviparous condition. So not ovoviviparous, the oviparous condition, they lay eggs. So prawn, the centipede, millipede. So these are all examples. See, spiders are not insects. They are placed under arachnids. What is the difference between spider and insect is insect has three pairs of legs. Insect has three pairs of legs. Spiders have four pairs of legs, and that is the reason they are placed under separately under arachnid. So spiders are not insects. So the development is direct or indirect. Now, what is the unique feature of this arthropoda phylum? They have jointed appendages. So body can be divided into three regions, that is head, thorax, and abdomen. So they have a exoskeleton made up of chitin. So the outermost layer is made up of chitinous cuticle. Even in prawn, you might have seen that outermost layer is made up of chitin. Cockroach, they also have this outermost layer is made up of chitin. So the crab, it is much more harder, the chitin here. So just remember about this chitinous cuticle. So the excretory system in case of these are Malpighian tubules. Excretory system in case of arthropoda is Malpighian tubules. They they also have sense organs like antennae. Antennae is sensory in function. So they have a compound eye. Each individual units we call it as ommatidia. Some of them have simple eye. Some of the insects like housefly. You might have watched that movie, Eega, where you see that they have large number of a small eye part of it. Each part of it will have a fragment of the image. So that is the compound eye. Ommatidia we call it as. So they also have balancing organs called statosis. So these are all the unique features that you notice in case of this phylum Arthropoda. So majority of time they ask the salient features of phylum Arthropoda as well as salient features of phylum Annelida. So you should be able to write that. At the end, you should write the examples for phylum Arthropoda. Spider is an example for it. Scorpion, crab, prawn, that is Sigdi, and insects. So they are all example for this phylum Arthropoda. So unique feature is they have jointed appendages. You can notice in the legs, they have jointed appendages. Body has three region, the head region, the thorax region. Thorax in case of insect, it has three pairs of legs. In case of spider, it has four pairs of leg. Then they have the abdominal region. This is the housefly, the honeybee. So where you notice all these features. So body has three regions, head, thorax, and abdomen, and body is covered by this chitinous exoskeleton, that is cuticle chitinous cuticle it is there. So excretion is by malphigian tubules. And sensory organs are antennae. Then you can notice the compound or simple eye. Then they also have statocysts, which are balancing organs. So the example spider, arachnid, it has four pairs of leg, scorpion. So they are also examples for arthropoda. Crab is also an example for arthropoda. Prawn, lobsters, they are all example for crustaceans which comes under arthropoda. Even they have this chitinous exoskeleton. So the insects, various types of insects, you can see mosquito, the bugs, the beetles. So then you can see this moth, the honeybee, housefly. So large variety of insects are also noticed, which are all placed under phylum Arthropoda, the largest phylum. So economically important insects are honeybee, from which we get the honey as well as wax. The Bombax mori, it is the silk moth. So we extract the silk fibers from the cocoon. The Lassifer laca, from which lax is obtained. The Lassifer laca insect, from which we obtain the lax. So the vectors which spread the diseases, like the elephantiasis disease is spread by an mosquito, the chikungunya, dengue, they are also spread by mosquitoes. Malaria is spread by mosquitoes. Housefly spreads cholera, gastroenteritis diseases. They are all spread by housefly. So these are vectors. They don't cause disease, but uh, when they bite an infected person, and in turn when they bite a healthy person, they transfer the disease. So they are like a transporting vehicle for the pathogens. So these are considered to be the vectors. So even elephantiasis is caused by uh, mosquito. So wherein they bite an infected person, and when once they bite the healthy person, so these filarial worms are transferred to him and he gets infested with the elephantiasis. So this vectors you can remember which are creating a large amount of spread of diseases are because of this vectors, from malaria to chikungunya, dengue, to the cholera, as well as elephantiasis. The gregarious pests. So today we are having this locust, the swarm of locusts. They come in huge numbers and destroy the crops. So even India is affected by this locust. This year especially Rajasthan and other places are affected by these infestations of locusts which feed the crops that the farmers have planted. So this limulus or king crab is considered to be a living fossil because they are existing from the time of dinosaurs to present, they have survived. That is the reason we call this king crab as living fossil. Limulus or king crab is called as living fossil. And what you can notice is their heartbeats are controlled by nervous system. See, our heartbeat is controlled by muscles. So we are myogenic heart we have. But in case of limulus, they have this neurogenic heart. So they have the neurogenic heart where heartbeats are controlled by the nervous system. So the next phylum is phylum Mollusca. So they are the soft-bodied animals. They are soft-bodied animals. So you can see the caude, the chiton, the conch shells, shanka, what we call it as capechepu. So the mussels, they are all the examples of this phylum Mollusca. So the apple snail, pearl oyster, the Chaetopleura or chiton, what we call it as. So they are all examples for phylum Mollusca, soft-bodied animals. Then squid, uh, the cuttlefish, sepia or cuttlefish. Then you also have this octopus or devilfish. They are all examples of phylum Mollusca. They are soft-bodied animals. So that is one thing that you have to remember about. So what are the salient features of this phylum Mollusca? So the first four things are common. So they have organ system, they have bilaterally symmetrical, they are triploblastic animals, they are coelomate. Now habit and habitat, majority of them are aquatic, a few of them are terrestrial. like snail, garden snails, they are terrestrial. The apple snail, they are terrestrial. So a few of them are terrestrial forms, most of them are aquatic. The digestive system is complete because they have a separate opening for mouth and anus. Respiratory system is gills in case of aquatic forms, and pulmonary sac is found in case of this terrestrial forms. So they have this respiratory system, they have this pulmonary sac. Circulatory system is open type because the heart directly pumps the blood into body spaces. Reproduction is dioecious. They have male and female organisms separately. Development is direct or indirect, which implies they might young one might directly form the adult or they undergo a larval stage. If they undergo larval stage, we call the development as indirect. The unique features of this phylum Mollusca: body can be divided into head, visceral mass, and they have a muscular foot. In the snail, you can notice here they have a muscular foot. Even in this apple snail, you can notice here they have a muscular foot. So body is divided into head, the visceral mass, and the muscular foot. So head has sensory tentacles. The head has these sensory tentacles which you can notice. So feather-like gills are present for respiration as well as excretion. So at the posterior part, you notice this feather-like gills, which is present both for respiration and excretion. They have a calcareous shell. See, they have their homes along with them. So whenever they are disturbed by predator, they just get into their shells and protect their soft body. So the shell are hard. So they have this hard shell, calcareous shell. So they also have this mantle. Mantle is below the shell and above the visceral mass. So mantle is found. So they also have a cavity between the uh, shell, the mantle and the visceral mass. They have a cavity. So radula is teeth-like structures found at the mouth region. So they help in filing of these food particles. So the radula helps in. So the examples that you have to remember for this phylum Mollusca are apple snail is called as phyla, pink tada, sepia. Sepia is this cuttlefish. The loligo is squid. Loligo is squid. Octopus, the devilfish. Aplysia is sea hare. Dentalium, it is called as tusk shell. Chetoplura or keton. So the diagrams are there. I'll show you that. See, the body is divided into unique features. Body has head region, visceral mass. So this region is the visceral mass. Then they have a muscular foot. Head has sensory tentacles, and they have a calcareous shell which protects their soft body. See, the shell can be univalve as in Shanka or Capechepu or apple snail. So they have this univalve. In case of Capechepu, it is bivalve, or in oyster, it is bivalve. So they have two shells. They are all calcareous in nature. So the phylum Mollusca, the unique features, they have feather-like gills at the posterior region. They not only help in excretion but also in respiration. They not only help in respiration but also in excretion. See, the mouth has special structures called as radula. They are file-like rasping organ. It is used for feeding, similar to teeth. Then they have this mantle or pallium. So it is a membrane present between the visceral mass and the shell. So between the hump and mantle, we can have this, notice this mantle cavity. So the mantle and radula are present. So the examples for phylum Mollusca is the phyla or apple snail. So pink tada is pearl oyster. So this is the pearl. So many of us and our poets, they say that so whenever the rain droplets falls, the pearl oyster, if it is open and the rain droplets falls into it, they are going to develop to form the pearl. That is a wrong concept. It doesn't happen because they are found at the bottom of seas. So the rain droplet cannot penetrate into the sea water and reach the bottom. So they are already surrounded by water which would have entered. So the pearls are formed out of irritation. Any sand particle or dust particle that enters inside this pink tada, they cause irritation. So in order to overcome that irritation, they secrete substances. This secretions longer the irritation. If they have this irritation from 10 years, the longer the pearl. So that is what you have to notice in the pearl formation in pink tide or pearl oyster, sepia or cuttlefish. So whenever they are threatened, they are going to put out a jet of ink. So sepia or cuttlefish, the loligo squid. So this is also one of them. Octopus or devilfish, they have 8 arms, as the name indicates octopus. Then sea hare is called as Aplysia. This looks like the elephant tusk. So we call it as tusk shell or dentalium. And this is the chiton or Chaetopleura. So these are all the examples that your textbook has prescribed them. With the photographs, I've shown them to you. The last phylum for this non-chordates is phylum Echinodermatas. So you can notice the starfish. They are spiny skinned animals. So you have to remember about that. So what is their characteristic features of phylum Echinodermata is they have organ system. See, radial symmetry is seen in adult. This is unique. Only in echinodermata you can notice. You have to write this point for salient features. Adults exhibit radial symmetry and larvae exhibit bilateral symmetry. So they are triploblastic coelomate, exclusively marine forms. They are all found in seas and oceans. So the digestive system is complete. They have a ventral mouth and dorsal anus. So arboreal and arboreal surface we have. They have ventral mouth and dorsal anus. So the circulatory system, so they have this skin gills or papillae and tube feet they have. So dermal branchiae is nothing but skin gills. They are found on the skin. And tube feet, they help in the respiration of these organisms. So even the starfish shows total regeneration. If they are fragmented into small bits, each and every bit develops into a complete organism. So that total regeneration is noticed in starfish. So the circulatory system is reduced and open type. That is the heart pumps the blood directly into the body spaces. So you can also notice certain reproduction is dioecious, male and female are separate. External fertilization, that is fertilization takes place in water, not within the female genital tract. Development is indirect. So they have larval stages. From larvae, they form the adult. They have a ciliated free swimming larvae that you have to write during examination. So they have a ciliated free swimming larvae. So the unique features are the body is covered with spines. The head is absent. So they have this calcareous endoskeleton on the body. So ossicles, we call them as calcareous endoskeleton or ossicles is found. So they have water vascular system. So excretory system is absent. They have water vascular system. See in phylum Porifera, we call it as water canal system. Here it is water vascular system. Similar to blood, they perform all the functions in case of this echinodermata, that is respiration, circulation of nutrients, removal of excretory products. So all those are done by this water vascular system. So the examples for this particular mollusca, the echinodermata, are starfish, scientific name is Asterias. Echinus is called as sea urchin, echinocardium, antedon. So the uh, uh, cucumaria, that is sea cucumber, you can notice it here. Ophiora, that is brittle star. So you can notice them. So the photographs are there in the next slide. So before that, the unique features. So they have an endoskeleton. So you can see here the endoskeletons, they are spiny. So they are made up of calcareous ossicles. Okay, head is absent and water vascular system is present. So the excretory system is absent. So water vascular system is present. The water enters into a sieve plate called as madreporite and they enter into this water canal system and they exit through this tube feet. So that is what you notice in water vascular system. Excretory system is absent. These are unique attributes of echinodermata. So the water vascular system, as I told you, the seawater enters through a porous plate, which is called as madreporite or sieve plate, and it reaches the uh, radiating canals. So the water from this madreporite seawater, it reaches the radiating canals and exits through the tube feet or podia. So the functions of water vascular system are they are helps in locomotion, respiration, that is exchange of respiratory gases. They also capture and transport food, and they also help in removal of nitrogenous waste. They don't have excretory system. The water vascular system, which is also called as ambulacral system, they do the job. So the examples for echinodermata, Asterias is called as starfish, Echinus is sea urchin, then you have this echinocardium. Antedon is sea lily. They look like a lily flower. So sea lily they are called as. Brittle star is Ophiora, and sea cucumber is Cucumeria. So these are the examples for phylum Echinodermata. So that completes our discussion of all the phylums of the non-chordates. So that is without notochord, without pharyngeal gill slits, without the dorsal, hollow uh, nerve cord. So all this you can notice up to phylum Echinodermata. From henceforth, we'll be discussing after this, the next phylum we'll discuss is the Hemichordata and phylum Chordata. So for this session, we complete with this phylum Echinodermata. So if you have liked this video and you have learned a lot from this video, so like and share this video, and remember to press the bell icon to receive the regular notification, and also subscribe for this channel. So thank you. So wishing you the best academic year. Thank you.